Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1994 basketball drama film Above the Rim. Now, Above the Rim has its fans. There are some people who think that this is a cult classic and a gem. I'm not one of them. I'm not going to say that I think this film shoots an air ball or anything, but this is not what I would consider to be one of my personal favorite basketball films. There are some good things about it, though, namely the soundtrack, which is full of banger after banger. I also like some of the performances and the basketball scenes when they are there. They're pretty fun and exciting to watch. But this movie is like a point guard who just takes the ball and then decides to go straight into the paint wildly and just throws up a hope and a prayer shot, hoping that it winds up going into the net. It's wild, it's uneven, and as a result, it can lead to some spectacular highlights, but it can also lead to some equally as spectacular lowlights. And that's why this film to me is just not even above average. It's just an okay, all right basketball drama. And I do feel that it's a little disappointing considering the potential that it has, because it just turns into way too much of a melodrama for my tastes, and it also just doesn't have a consistent enough tone. That's easily one of the biggest reasons why I don't really feel that this film really finds the winning combination of plays. But that's just me. And before I get around to sharing more of my thoughts on the film more in depth, I want to give a special shout out to Shine for requesting this video. Now, Above the Rim is directed by Jeff Pollack, who prior to this film had never directed a movie. I think he might have directed some episodes of Fresh Prince, but I'm not entirely sure on that because his claim to fame prior to Above the Rim was being a co-creator, producer, and writer on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And you can definitely see those sitcom roots here when it comes to his direction. There are some moments in this that look like scenes that you could see in Fresh Prince. Then there are some moments in it that look like something different, that have a nice, a fresh, a bit of attitude and style and flair to them that don't look like something that you would see on the small screen. But because of the fact that this director has so much inexperience and hasn't really directed that many movies, the film has a lot of scenes in it that look like stuff you would see straight out of television. He's at his best when it comes to directing the basketball scenes. The basketball scenes, they're shot in a way that really puts you right into the middle of the action. The dunks really feel like they're earth-shattering. The big shots really feel like they have some weight to them. But when it comes to any other sequence in this movie, the tone is either off visually or it's just flat to look at in terms of the camera angles or the overall techniques that Jeff uses for directing the movie. There are also some points where it looks kind of a little bit too much like a music video as well, but that's kind of a typical thing for the 90s. It was very common, but here, especially in the opening of the movie, which is supposed to be a very dramatic, intense opening scene, it looks way too much like a 90s rap music video. And it's just not the right vibe for the opening of the film to me. Honestly, I wish this movie had a more accomplished, a more established, a more experienced director at the helm, because that really would have enabled this film to have a less chaotic look to it, and have more of a consistency when it comes to its visuals. And I definitely think that would have improved the film. Would have definitely helped the more dramatic scenes also come across better than they did in the film, because a lot of the dramatic scenes, they come across as soap opera melodrama stuff. They don't come across as something that has that kind of realistic, gritty, cinematic weight to them. They just come across as kind of small potatoes, TV level kind of quality drama visually. But Jeff Pollack was the one that they chose, and at the end of the day, he didn't do a bad job. He just didn't do a job that was particularly that great either. It was just another okay aspect of, in my opinion, just a pretty okay film. And then you get to the screenplay, which is by Barry Michael Cooper and Jeff Pollack. And the script is, in my opinion, arguably the biggest reason why this movie doesn't really become a slam dunk. It doesn't really wind up finding the right amount of highlight reel worthy plays. It's why it's so spotty when it comes to those kind of moments. And it starts from the very beginning with a very tonally off opening sequence involving the character of Shep, who is playing basketball with his friend Nutso off the on the top of a high-rise building, and something happens where Nutso falls to his death because they're doing this whole thing where they're jumping up to tap the backboard, and Nutso winds up falling to his death after tapping it too hard. And the way that it was shot, it looked laughable. And the way that it was written, it was just, the intensity didn't feel like it was earned or it was genuine. And the drama really suffered as a result. I honestly laughed at the start of this movie. And this is supposed to be a very emotional, powerful sequence. And I laughed. And that's not really the best way to start this basketball drama, with a scene that's just laughably written and poorly executed. I mean, because it didn't even look like there was any reason why Nutso would have died doing what he did. Okay, he jumped up and he smacked the backboard, uh, and it fell apart, and then he fell through the backboard and died. What it what, does Nutso have the ability of the Incredible Hulk? Is Nutso Meteor Man? Like what? What is up with this? How does he have this power? How does he have these powers to smack the backboard to the point where it breaks and then he falls to his death? Like if the backboard was that flimsy, why didn't it break earlier when they were dunking or they were shooting the ball? Like I don't understand the logic here. Is the backboard made out of balsa wood? Like it was too incredulous, it was too silly, and it was a really bad way to start the movie. But once you get past that point, things get a little better, because then it focuses on Kyle Lee Watson, this talented young basketball player who's trying to get into Georgetown, but he's too cocky and he's too much of a hothead, and it focuses on him who's and his senior year in high school, and he's not enough of a team player. You know, he doesn't pass the ball. He's a ball hog. You know, he has all these traits of a hothead basketball player, and that's leading Georgetown to be hesitant in terms of signing him. And so that's causing a lot of conflict in his life. And he's friends with his teammates. He's also friends with this uh, guy named Bugaloo who spent a year in juvenile detention for some kind of crime, and he gets out. And so then that causes some extra stuff to make Kyle Lee Watson's life more complicated because Boogaloo introduces him to this man named Birdie, who is played by Tupac. And he's a local thug and kind of a crime lord. And he's somebody who has connections and can kind of grease the wheels in order to get him his scholarship and so on and so forth. And in order to do that, Kyle has to join his team for this tournament called the Shootout. Uh, and Kyle has a mother who sees that her son is out of control, um, named Malika, and she's trying to get her son to see that there's more to life than just basketball, trying to get her son to respect her and to um, really go on a more productive and better path in his life and stay away from bad influences like his stoner friend and Bugaloo and um the drug lord in Birdie, and he's not having any of it. And he's honestly really a dick towards his mom in this. Like, there's actually scenes where his mom smacks the shit out of him, and it's very well deserved because he's just being a dick. That is a problem too, is like Kyle Lee Watson, the way that he's written, you don't see anything about him early on that shows a good side to him, that shows him as a good teammate, other than him having a bit of bonding with his teammates at some points. But most of the time, like, he just seems like he's a cocky hothead and an arrogant dick. Like, and not in a way where you're like, "Oh, man, I see some good in him." Like, you don't really see that for most of the story. So that definitely was a problem because he is essentially the lead and he's not likable. He just comes across like a hothead, cocky douchebag jock who, like, talks back to his mom and is just a problem. And he eventually does change his ways and uh becomes a more likable character, but it didn't really feel like it was something that was earned that much because, like I said, you didn't see the good in him enough early on. So I think if there was a better balance of him being a diva and him being entitled and him being hot-headed and cocky and being a dick, but with moments of him being kind and him being sweet and him being the opposite, I really think that would have helped this film immensely because his story, his arc, is the one that is given the most attention, and it's just halfway there. And it's something that also affects the other arc in the movie, the arc involving Shep, because it's a similar thing. We just see him being quiet and bitter and introverted and just being a different kind of unlikable character. And the reason for why Shep is supposed to be this way is because of the trauma that he experienced when it comes to the death of his friend Nutso. But because of how badly that was written and how badly that was done in the beginning of the movie, that doesn't really work as well as it should. Like the way that it unfolds, it is clearly an accident. He didn't kill him. It was a freak accident. And here you have Shepard being so traumatized. He's running away from any responsibilities. He doesn't want to play basketball anymore, but he'll do basketball moves with Nutso's ghost late at night because he's so riddled with PTSD and trauma. And I don't want to trivialize people's trauma or anything, but it just didn't feel like the level of detachment and the level of depression was really something that connected with what he experienced. It just kind of felt like it was a stretch to me. And since those two plots are really the ones that are featured the most in the movie, it really makes the film just kind of iffy and there when it comes to its story. It picks up though when you start to get to the point where Birdie is getting unhinged. You find out that Birdie is actually Shep's younger brother, and so you have some extra conflict between those two. And when Shep does decide to nut up finally and get over it and do his part to help Kyle and then actually join the shootout at the end, the movie starts to actually become quite good. But it takes a while for it to get to that point. Because before that, Shep is just moping around throughout the majority of the runtime. Kyle's just being a dick. And then you have moments where it's trying to be funny with Bugaloo, with Marlon Wayans' character, but he also just comes across as annoying. So then it's just you just have more annoyances that are added into the film, and the movie's already annoying and kind of irritating at points in terms of just how it's just not living up to its potential at this point. But once you get to the shoot around and you get the Shep doing a favor for his coach and helping Kyle, things really start to turn around. And I even don't mind the whole love story thing either. Like, I don't think the love story between Malika and Shep is like the greatest thing ever, but they're a cute couple. There's a fun scene where they go to see Shaft at the theater, and I think that there is some potential there, and at least you get to see Leon's character Shep just unwind and do anything other than just mope around. So that is something that is a nice change of pace for the film. But for a basketball movie, I'll give it this. The basketball scenes, they do have a good amount of drama to them, and there's a lot of action, there's a lot of dunks, there's a lot of big plays, and it does a really great job establishing Birdie and his team as a bunch of thugs that you want to see get beaten down by the end of the movie. And is it predictable at points? Yes. I mean, you know that Kyle and his team are going to find a way to beat Birdie in the finals. And you know that Shep is going to come in after some kind of circumstance when Kyle's team needs another player, and then Shep's gonna come in and he's gonna turn back the clock and he's gonna show everybody how amazing he is, and he's gonna um, not run away from his responsibility. Like, you know that that's the next step when it comes to Shep's story. But despite it being predictable, it's still something that is nice to see. It's nice to see Shep finally break out of the darkness. It's nice to see Shep no longer clinging on to the past and looking more towards the present. It's nice to see him do his part to lead Kyle down a better path. And it's just nice to see Tupac's character and Birdie uh, get dunked on. I will give the writers credit though, because even though there is some predictability when it comes to these basketball scenes, in the shootout, the fact that it turns into a literal shootout at the end with Birdie telling one of his thugs to shoot Kyle, that is definitely an escalation I didn't necessarily see coming, and that has a that's a scene that definitely has a pretty big impact to it, and that's where the crime drama aspect blends with the basketball in a way that works. And you know that Shep, after he takes a bullet for Kyle, he's not gonna die because you know that it's not gonna go that far with it. So he's fine, and he's back with Malika, and he's watching Kyle like a proud papa in a way, because now he's like a father figure in his life, and he's watching him succeed at Georgetown because he did get accepted to Georgetown. I don't understand why though. That's another problem. Like he gets accepted to Georgetown, and I think it's before the shootout, if I remember correctly. And I'm kind of like, what has he done to earn that? Because it seems like he was still kind of a cocky douche, and he like walked off the court in the last game that he played, but he somehow still gets to Georgetown despite doing all that and being so hot headed he had to wind up getting smacked by his mom again. Like I just I don't understand why he got into Georgetown after that display of just pettiness and immaturity. But it is what it is. And the ending, I did not see coming either. I did not see the last shot being Birdie getting shot by Boogaloo, because Birdie was really poking fun at Boogaloo, made a big fool out of him in one earlier scene, and Boogaloo was like, "Fuck this shit," and he walks up to Birdie's club and just pulls out a gun and just pops him, and I'm like, okay, all right, that's definitely an ending. It feels like something that isn't necessarily a part of the same kind of film that this is. It's more of a melodrama. It's almost like something you would see in like a hood movie, but now it's just thrown in there in this basketball drama film. This is like a film that wants to be a hood movie, but then it also wants to be a feel good basketball movie. And the two don't always mesh that well. I've got to be honest. So it's unique in that way, but also it's why it falls short to me personally. I would have rather it been more of a harder film, leaned even harder into the crime drama hood aspect, and still had the basketball stuff, or just go full on feel good basketball movie. Because I don't really think the way that they're handled in the script and the story really wind up combining together for like the best winning formula. The cast, it's not too bad. I think it's another element of the movie though. It's kind of a mixed bag. Like Duane Martin, he's just there for me. Like I bought him when it comes to the basketball stuff and him being a cocky douchebag jock, but when he's turning things around, it didn't really click the same way. It didn't really resonate as strongly. Leon from Cool Runnings and other films and other content, he just mopes for most of the movie, and he does a pretty good job moping. But I just I wasn't really super enamored with his performance either. Tupac Shakur though was fantastic. Tupac was great as the antagonist. Like he was easily, in my opinion, the best performer out of the entire cast. And Bernie Mac, I didn't mind either as Flip, the homeless, crackhead who played with Shep and Nutso. Um, Tonya Pinkins, I thought did a quite good job as Kyle's mom, Malika. Marlon Wayans, he's definitely been funnier and a lot of other things. But when he needed to be hard, he actually surprisingly pulled that off. But when he was just trying to be the goofball, it didn't really work that well for me. And I don't know if it was because of Marlon and the stuff he improvised, or it was just the stuff that he was given in the script. I really don't know what it was. And, I liked Wood Harris as Motah and, David Bailey, who played Kyle's coach, Mike. Uh, so, there's definitely some good cast members in this beyond the main cast guys. Sean Michael Coward who plays Bobby. But really, it's Tupac Shakur who steals the film. And it's just another instance that shows that Tupac is sorely missed because he's honestly a really good actor. Like he's not only a great rapper, but he's also a really good actor. And so it just sucks to have lost out on that. Like I think he would have just evolved and gotten even better as an actor if he was still with us and still made great music. But yeah, the cast, I don't think it's the best team, but it's a decent team. The cinematography by Tom Priestley Jr., it's not what I would consider to be something that is, on fire from downtown, but it's fine. The editing by Michael Rips and James Mitchell, it doesn't rip, but it also isn't something that I think is particularly impressive. It's also another aspect of the film that just kind of works, but at points it doesn't. It's just another uneven aspect of the movie because the editing was also a big reason why the opening scene was so laughable. The music by Marcus Miller, the score was just kind of generic and unmemorable, but the soundtrack, I mean, the soundtrack is just fantastic. I mean, you got so many great tracks on this. It's just a really good soundtrack. So, I mean, there's a reason why a lot of people are big fans of Regulate, um, or some of the other songs, from the soundtrack. So, yeah, it's a film that I would probably never watch again, to be perfectly honest, because there's not enough things about it that I love or really like, but I do appreciate that it tried to do something different with a mix of uh, different genres. I don't think it worked that well, but I appreciate the fact that it did make the effort. And it's one of those movies where I think with a better script and a better director, I think this really could have been something great and a potential classic. But as it is, it's just an okay, all right basketball drama. But anyway, that is my thoughts on Above the Rim. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. See ya.